Hey everyone, James Niggemeyer here. Thank you for tuning back into my YouTube channel. Today I want to give you my top 3 shad spawn baits. And what I mean by the shad spawn, it's a seasonal pattern that occurs annually where the threadfin shad or any other type of bait fish, but particularly threadfin shad, move into the shallows to do their spawning activity, their ritual, just like the largemouth bass, just like the bluegill. Everything moves shallow to go ahead and procreate. So there's some baits that work really well, and I want to go over a bunch of them, but I'm going to give you my top 3 that have just worked really well over my years fishing the pro circuit. So before I get right into it, if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, please hit the subscribe button. And if you like this video, give me a thumbs up and drop a comment down below because I'd love to hear from you. Shad spawn baits, or baits that work during that seasonal pattern. There's so many of them. One of them's a swim bait. A swim bait on a jig head, a swim bait on a hook that would make it weedless, where you could fish it around any kind of shallow cover. But just a swim bait can work really well in different varying sizes. Just make a great shad imitator when those shad are up there spawning. Another one that's really great is a chatterbait style lure, like a Strike King Thunder Cricket, a bladed jig like this with maybe a blade minnow, or maybe even a rage craw, something that's kind of moving in and through the water. A bladed jig is great. Top water lures, like a walk the dog style bait, like a Strike King Sexy Dog, or anything that kind of sachets across the water, left, right, left. Those types of walk the dog style baits work really well. A buzz bait can work really well. So there's a lot of different things. I've caught them on a square bill. You know, your shallow running crankbaits work well. Another thing that's great, and I've caught them on it, is a lipless vibrating rattle bait, like a Strike King Red Eye Shad or rattle trap type baits. Those work well. But I'm going to give you my top 3 baits that have just worked well for me. I'm not going to say these are the best. I'm just saying these are going to be the most productive that I've used just historically over the years. Number 1, I'm just going to say right out of the gates, we got to have a spinnerbait. A spinnerbait for me is just a great shad imitator. And I think the best thing about a spinnerbait is that the bass or the shad are going to want to spawn with the spinnerbait. They think it's a school of bait fish, and they're going to run into it and hit alongside of it as it's moving through the water. On hitting the blades, you'll feel it tinking the blades and even the skirt, but mainly the blades, they'll tink it. What I mean by tink is to just run into it and just try to spawn with it, try to mate with your spinnerbait. And that gives you the ability to break down water quickly and find out where the shad spawn's actually happening, because it's not going to be on every point, it's not going to be on every hump, it's not going to be on every grass line or around every dock, but certain ones have it going on. And this is a great way to not only find the shad spawn, but to catch them as well. So I love a spinnerbait, 3/8, ½ ounce. I've even used a 3/4 ounce, slow rolling it deeper down off outer grass edges. So that works well also. And it's just, again, covers water well, attracts the shad, and gets bit. So the spinnerbait, great tool for that. So that's number 1. Number 2, man, I have just done damage with a swim jig. This is a Strike King Hack Attack swim jig, but a white swim jig with some type of actively moving tail, like a Strike King Rage Craw on the back, or a swim bait on the back, or maybe even a Strike King Menace grub on the back. But a swim jig in and around the shallow areas where shad spawn's happening has just been really good. It's been really good for me around vegetation, whether it's gator vine, gator grass, emergent weeds like water willow, hydrilla, milfoil, whatever type of vegetation you might have, and the shad are deeply into the spawning activity, that swim jig is just great. And I'll fish it up high in the water column. And obviously the shad spawn happens early in the morning, and it just maintains till at least the sun gets pretty high in the sky. So it starts to taper off depending upon whether it's bright sunny or what, but somewhere around between 8 and 9 o'clock, it starts to taper off. Some places even earlier than that. But the shad spawn with a swim jig, it's just been a tremendous fish producer for me. Swimming it high on the water column, shaking the rod tip, or even slow rolling it down there on the bottom, even if it's just a foot or 2 foot of water, but just having it bounce around cover, contacting the bottom, and the bottom structure, it is just a great fish producer for the shad spawn. Last but not least, a topwater, a popper. This is a Strike King KVD Splash, and I got one in a package here. And just a popper type bait with feathers on the back there, like that. I feel like just that pop, pop, pop. And as you're popping it, it's kind of running horizontal. And then when you pause it, that bait will dip down. And sometimes those feathers kind of falling down to the bottom can be really good at drawing a strike from fish that are following it, fish that are in and around that shad spawn type activity. You can fish it pretty fast, you can fish it pretty slow. You want to try to figure out exactly what retrieve style makes it happen for them, what really trips their trigger, so to speak. But a popper type bait, or chugger type bait as it might be known, a pop R style bait as it's probably more widely known like that, works really well in and around the shad spawn. Those are my top 3 shad spawn baits. Again, there's several that work, and wake baits work. There's just a lot of different things that imitate the bait fish in the water as they're doing their annual spawning activity. But those are my top 3. Well, that's it for now, guys. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. And until next time, thanks for watching and good fishing.